Probably without the mask works better. So, good evening, everyone, and I apologize for the late start. I appreciate your patience. I'm going to call this meeting to order at 6:46 p.m., and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Brenhall.
Let's all stand and face the flag.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Adrian, if you could please call the roll.
Commissioner Brenhog,
Here.
Commissioner Chavez Morris,
Here.
Commissioner Chen,
Present.
Commissioner Herrera,
Present.
Commissioner Khan,
Present.
Vice Chair Godo,
Here.
Chair Jennings Nunez,
Here.
Youth Ambassador Munoz Rios,
Here.
Youth Ambassador C2.
Here.
Thank you. We will now have some announcements from our staff liaison, Matthew Morales-Stevens.
Tonight's meeting is live streamed on Cable Channel 3 and our online platforms. If you wish to address the HEAR Commission during tonight's meeting, we request that you please complete a speaker's card and hand it to the clerk, Adrian Franquez. When speaking, please state your name for the record. If you wish to be added to the distribution list to receive HEAR Commission agendas, please email your request to hearcommission@sgch.org.
Thank you. If we could now have an approval of the agenda order. Are there any objections to tonight's agenda order? Thank you. So hearing none, we'll move on to the next item, which is public comment. This is the time set aside for members of the public to address the HEAR Commission on items of interest that are not on the agenda, but are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the HEAR Commission. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the HEAR Commission cannot answer any questions or take any action until such time as the matter may appear as an item on a future agenda. If you wish to address the HEAR Commission, please fill out a speaker's card and hand it to the clerk. Matthew, do we have any public comments?
We do not. Is there anyone here tonight? Yes.
We have a public comment by Isabel Candelaria.
Good evening. I am a resident of West Broadway, and I would still like to protest about what happened with the vote last week. And may I hand out some papers? There you go. Oh, thank you. Okay, so I represent the residents of West Broadway, which is going to be directly affected by the pickleball courts. We had factual information that was presented to the city council, and that was totally ignored. What they heard was, it's fun, it's healthy, pickleball is here to stay. Now, the residents are not against pickleball, we just don't want additional courts. I also showed the city council a log. You could see different people were filling it out, different times of day. And the most players that we saw, I think, one time was 26. But apparently, Parks and Recreation said there was 30 to 60 people. I don't know. We are there all the time. All the neighbors are. We see this. The pickleball players don't see it all the time, and neither does Parks and Rec Commissioner. We addressed noise ordinance, safety, compromise. My brother-in-law got hit and killed on the corner of San Marino Avenue and Broadway, and they put a crappy little crosswalk that nobody stops at. The green space should not be lost that we have there. Property value will be negatively affected. We have to live with this noise 24/7. So I think our voices need to be heard more than players that come from different cities. I know we have to be a community, however, I think our voices need to be heard. And we were given no notice. One notice we were given, okay, excuse me. There was one notice given 2 days prior to the city council meeting, and it said that we had to respond by August 10th. I think the meeting was August 8th, and we were to respond by August 10th. Some of the elderly people in our block did send in cards. So I'm just asking that this, I don't know what you could do, but this is a community issue, and we're very serious about it, and we're not gonna let this go. We're gonna fight on about this. So I'm just presenting it to you and see if there is anything you could do to help us. Thank you.
Public comment by Jonathan Vivanti.
Good evening here, Commission. My name is Jonathan Vivanti, and I reside at 312 San Marcos Street, San Gabriel. I wish to express disappointment to the approval by the City Council on 15 August 2023 by a vote of 3-1 in favor of building a pickleball court at Smith Park in the proposed new location, and the approval of construction contract number 2308, authorizing the city manager to sign all documents necessary to execute the contract. That evening, I feel that members of the public opposed to the addition of a new court were well represented, either physically present or who submitted comments to read that evening. In addition, at that council meeting, we had indicated that we had collected a total of 330 signatures between an online petition and a written physical one. There was also a third petition mentioned circulating with additional signatures. At this moment, we probably have surpassed 500 signatures. I feel that the decision by the City Council was not given equitable consideration. It is not equitable when the entirety of the public we engaged with verbally prior to an 18 July City Council meeting knew nothing of a pending decision at the 18 July meeting where the council was going to vote to whether to award the contract to build a new pickleball court. Our presence at that meeting pushed the need for a follow-on public meeting on 15 August. It is not equitable when two representatives of the Gabriel Indian tribe at the 15 August City Council meeting spoke in opposition of a new court and impacts to the green space designated for passive recreation, posing the question of legality as well as requesting a government-to-government meeting. Their requests were seemingly ignored by the council. It is not equitable when final drawings or plans of the new court are not shown to the public for comment prior to the decision. All we were shown was a very conceptual footprint of the new court. There was also no detail as where a walkway that currently makes a loop in the main lawn open area would be rerouted due to the new court, and what impacts that would have on the remaining main lawn open area. It is not equitable when the issue of additional pickleball noise is only addressed by saying noise reduction materials will be utilized along the Broadway-facing side. However, these materials have never been tested by the city, and the city manager clarified that he didn't know how effective it would be in terms of performance. It is not equitable when no intermediate solution is offered to better utilize the two courts already present, a pickleball court and an underutilized tennis court. Lastly, it is not equitable when the city establishes that the pickleball project is exempt from California Environmental Quality, CEQA, even though there appears to be significant implications associated with increased noise, traffic, and adverse impacts to cultural resources, aesthetics, open space, passive recreation, and the community quality of life. Thank you for your consideration of my comments.
Are there any additional comments?
Public comment by Annette Kondo.
She's at another meeting, unfortunately, can't make it.
Well, while we can't comment on public comments, I'm sure I speak for all of the commissioners when I say that any person who takes the time to either send in a comment and especially takes the time to come in and present their concerns in person, we take very seriously. So we truly appreciate you coming and expressing those concerns. We'll leave it at that for right now. Thank you. Our next item is approval of minutes. Matthew, do we have any public comments on this action item?
We do not.
So if there are no comments, then time for public comment on this item is closed. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of June 27th and July 22nd with the corrections that were sent in by Vice Chair Godo?
I move that we approve with the minor edits.
I'll second.
Thank you. Adrian, if you can please take the vote.
Commissioner Brenhog,
Aye.
Commissioner Chavez Morris. Commissioner Chen. Commissioner Herrera,
Aye.
Commissioner Khan,
Aye.
Vice Chair Godo,
Aye.
Chair Jennings Nunez.
Aye.
Motion passed by a vote of 7 ayes, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions.
Okay, so we'll now begin with discussion items, and let me just also say that I really appreciate Vice Chair Godo going through all of our minutes all the time and catching small details to make them accurate. So thank you for being such a good proofreader. The first discussion item is discussion item A. We mainly only have 2 real discussion items tonight. The first one is discussion of the approved 2023 annual work plan. The commission will review and discuss the 2023 approved annual work plan. Matthew, do we have any public comments on this item?
We do not.
Thank you. So just to start this off, I thought that it would be good, because there isn't a formal orientation for any of the commissions, and the HERE Commission is certainly the newest commission, just to provide a little bit of background, because we do have new members, we do have our youth ambassadors, and I want to make sure that we're all aware of what the commission was created to do, and what the scope of our responsibilities are, because we all are, have lots of different interests and passions, and equity, inclusion, and all of those things that we are working on is so vast and can go in so many different directions that I think it's helpful every year at some point to provide just a brief review of what our commission is. Thank you. So our San Gabriel HEAR Commission, and for those of you who don't know what the acronym stands for, because we just say HEAR Commission a lot, it is the Human Equity, Access, and Relations Commission. That's our acronym HEAR. Next slide. We were established with an ordinance, ordinance number 670. It was created and signed, or it was signed on October 20, 2020 by our city council. And this is the ordinance that created the HEAR Commission and put us into the San Gabriel Municipal Code as such. I don't know what to point this at. It's probably easier for you to do. Thank you. No, I just need to change the slides, yeah. So I just took the initial kind of whereases just to as a simple way of reminding people. So the ordinance states, whereas in the wake of the social justice and racial equity movement that occurred during the summer of 2020, the City Council of the City of San Gabriel adopted Resolution 2031, which is available for read on the website, and committed to an ongoing process of self-reflection, examination, active listening, and engagement with the community to review the city's current policies and practices to ensure the fair, even, and equal administration and enforcement of its laws, to eliminate racism and discrimination based on race, color, ethnicity, ancestry, national origin, or other protected statuses in the city's policies and practices, and to hold the entire organization accountable to these standards and to adopt reforms necessary to do so. So our HEAR Commission, while we certainly are, part of the City of San Gabriel, was really created to advise the city on policies and procedures within the city. It is not a body that really can take on those same ideals within the city as a whole. Next slide. The city met with, whereas the city met with diverse cross-sections of community members, including community advocates, business owners, interfaith leaders, representatives of the San Gabriel Police Department and the city executive team, and, next slide. Whereas as a result of this engagement process, the City Council now wishes to create this new advisory commission that would report to the City Council, advance the city's commitments as stated in the first recital, and address issues of equity, diversity, social justice, safety, mutual appreciation, and respect on an ongoing basis. Next slide. And with that, the HEAR Commission was created. So we've only been around about almost 3 years now, and I think we have done incredible work to say that we've only been around 3 years. It is very much a working commission for all of those commissioners who are on part of it. They realize that is the case. Next slide. So the purpose of the HEAR Commission basically says something similar, is to advance and advocate for equity, access, diversity, social justice, safety, mutual appreciation, increased cultural competence, positive intergroup relations, and respect for all members of the San Gabriel community, basically to fix the whole world from this dais. Next slide. And this one is kind of particularly important, is the scope. So the HEAR Commissions will serve as an advisory body, as most of the commissions do, to the City Council, and we report directly to the City Council to assess and recommend policies, procedures, and activities in the city government to advance our purpose. It is not intended for our commission to be a quasi-judicial body or an oversight board, or whose primary function is to receive or investigate individual incidents within our city or complaints. So we can request and obtain information that helps us to move our purpose along, but that is really the scope. We are asked to review the city procedures and workings, and certainly if something comes to our attention within our city government that is not equitable, that is not inclusive of our residents, does not provide access, then we are to make recommendations to the City Council, and then it is up to the City Council to take those recommendations and move them forward as they see fit. Next slide. Along with that, we are asked to create an annual work plan each year that outlines our goals and the focus for the coming year. This last year, we started in January, but when I looked back at the ordinance, or at the ordinance, it really says that we're supposed to present our work plan in January. So we might want to think about starting on our work plan in November. Last year, we didn't meet in December because it was a holiday, and I would move for us not to meet this December either. That's another discussion, but maybe starting on the work plan in November so that we can get it to City Council earlier in the year than we did this year for their approval. I think there may be one more slide. The work plan is presented in every agenda, so if you haven't read through it, especially for our newer members who weren't a part of creating it, these 7 areas of concentration are part of it: equity training and inequities in city policy, community engagement, youth engagement, community information, accessibility partnerships with community and city organizations, and data collection. And then the last slide. So just as a reminder, our first commission came up with these 7 areas, but they're not written in any ordinance. They're just what we came up with. They've worked well for us in terms of kind of compartmentalizing what we want to do, but they can definitely change. And so that will be part of the discussion this go around. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them, or Mark or Matthew can answer them as well. If there are any questions, this agenda item is to review our 2023 approved work plan. So if anyone has any questions about it right now, obviously we are mainly focused on the Mental Wellness Expo, but we do have other things in our work plan that we will hopefully get around to in the next couple of meetings as well. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, for that review. I think it's helpful for us to take a look back and see what our origins are. And it's not a question, but I just wanted to make a comment about the data collection portion of our work plan, which came up at our last meeting. And I attended the 411 with the chief, and our request was brought up by a member of the community who is with us today to ask the chief sort of what the status was. And so Interim Chief Nakamura did follow up with me. He checked in with the state to see what the status of the report, the RIPA report was, and found that they're a bit behind in their, I guess, data crunching. They do have the 2023 aggregate report out, but I guess it takes a little time to disentangle each of the smaller cities. So he did send us a very long spreadsheet of all the raw data, which is available if the commissioners want to look at it. But if we can wait a bit, I guess the state will do the analysis and provide us with some charts and things that are a little bit easier to read. I looked at it and it was a lot. So just wanted to give you that update and to thank our community out there for supporting our request for that information.
And just to give people background, especially for those who are in the audience, the data collection that Vice Chair Godo is referring to is data collection on traffic stops done in San Gabriel. There's a number of different demographics that are collected with those traffic stops, and so and it is something that is required to be collected by all police departments now, and so that has been part of our work plan since 2020, and so we'll be getting that data.
I just have a quick follow-up question for that. Vice Chair Godo, so that's a state-collected data?
No, the city reports into the state, and the state prepares the report. So that they're in charge of doing the analysis and the aggregation of, and it includes, all of the cities and jurisdictions within the whole state. So that's the report that's posted now. And then I believe that each of the cities gets their own specialized report that's just their data.
Which agency is it that provides that?
It is, good question.
Mark might be able to tell us.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the commission. I have to look at my cheat sheet because
I know, me
it's an acronym I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's through the Attorney General's office, the State of California Attorney General, and it's the RIPA board report, the racial, and that's the part I was trying to look up very quickly.
And identity profiling.
Racial Identity Profiling Advisory Board. It's a separate board for that.
So the raw data, is that the state level data? It's not the city level data?
It'll end up with both. Sorry to cut you off, Commissioner Goto. It's going to end up with both, and as you summarized, we do provide all of that data. We track it with every single stop. It's required by the state of California. We have a whole list of categories we have to check. It's very quick for the officers to do so to make it more likely that that data gets tracked, and it's to the best of that officer's ability at the time they make those stops, and that all goes into a database, and we send that raw information to the state. So there's no manipulation by the city or the officers or anybody in our team. It goes to the state, and as was already discussed, it gets amalgamated and then handed back down on a city-by-city basis. And my understanding is we'll end up with numbers on the number of stops per racial group and the kinds of stops and those kinds of things. And then as we heard, if you're interested and you're a numbers wonk, you can get down into that level of looking at all of that and seeing any further data for yourselves.
Can I add something to that? I know Commissioner Goto was at the meeting. I asked the question
So
about,
is this a public comment?
I just
Because
wanted
it
to.
can't be a question.
It's not a question. I just wanted to just let the commission know at the 411, I asked about, because I look at the crime statistics on our city website, and I notice a lot of times when it comes to race, it's unknown or whatever. So I specifically asked Interim Chief Nakamura about that, and he said they cannot ask the person what their race is. They have to just assume the race, right? So I just wanted to add that because it kind of skews the data a little bit, I believe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions concerning the work plan or concerning what Commissioner Goto presented? No. Thank you. So we'll be moving down that work plan, and then in November, we will be starting for our 2024 work plan. So start thinking about where we should go in 2024. So now we'll move on to agenda item 4B, and that will take the bulk of our discussion. That is going to be our Mental Wellness Expo for 2023. And our lead, Commissioner Brinha, is back from her travels safely, and she is going to provide the lead for this discussion.
Thank you, Chair. And thanks, everybody, for your hard work last meeting as well. I was able to watch it and review all of the discussion that was had. And so hopefully tonight we can try to have a streamlined discussion to kind of cover all the bases that we have left, because our next meeting is it about a week before the expo? So we would like to have, pretty much all of those things that we have open closed at this meeting, at least all of the decisions made, and everybody to be aware of their the action items that are their responsibility. So first, I did want to kind of review that roles document. Matthew, I just resent it to you. Do you think you can just put it up? Okay. Yeah, maybe make it. Yeah, okay. So I think everybody has this document, but I just want us to review to make sure that all of the things on the list that you're responsible for, you are thinking about and like have a plan for it. Does anybody feel like they have questions about that to start? I mean, I assume that everybody's very familiar with it. Okay.
I had to look back
Okay.
through several emails to find it, but it is very helpful when you find it.
Okay, great. And then also, just a reminder that, there is Brown Act, but we don't have to do all of the work within these meetings. So if there are other things to be coordinated, please reach out to Matthew, and he will be really responsive. He's super great, and he helps get all the answers that we need.
Yes, and thank you, Matthew. I know it's a lot of work on you. So thank
Okay, so also, Chair Jennings Nunez reminded people, I guess, that I am assigning roles for the day. And so I did want to kind of review those today. And I was hoping that the roles would kind of fit within our perspective areas. So hopefully, Rick, you will be able to just interact with the exhibitors, just make sure that they know what they need and they know where their booth is, and just keep in touch with them. Yes?
I'll go over with Matthew about the booths where they're situated, and then definitely I'll work with them.
Okay.
I believe, like last year, we have a little booth that I can sit there and kind of coordinate with all the exhibitors, so I'll definitely be
Okay.
actively looking and working with that.
Great. I talked to Commissioner Chen about helping, we were going to reach out to AYC to help with some translation services the day of, especially in Mandarin, or, other languages too, but he can kind of coordinate with them to help people who may not understand what announcements are coming from the stage. And then Chair Jennings Nunez, you're volunteer lead, so I'm hoping that you're kind of there to head up the volunteers and direct them where to go. And then Vice Chair Goto will be working with the workshops. Yes. And then I probably will be, around everywhere, but most, I guess, working with the activities and the interactive kid space. And then Commissioner Chavez Morris is going to be our MC, and also, I think, helping to work a little bit with media and elected officials. And then Commissioner Herrera is going to be working with the raffle, so specifically like working out how those announcements are going to be made, how we're going to let people know where to pick up prizes, and then like if we need signage, if we need a basket or a box for the raffle, all of that stuff. And then last year we did those little, what were they called? Kind of like passports or tickets that I think, Matthew can get printed out. And I did bring stickers, but we don't need stickers. They could just kind of like initial or something at each booth, but just kind of explaining that whole system to people as they come through the information booth, and yeah, just run that. Okay. Does that sound great? And then to our ambassadors, did you have a specific area that you wanted to be involved?
So keep in mind also that I was counting our youth ambassadors, Aaron and Kelly, in as leads and volunteers as well, but certainly along those lines, we'll have volunteers in each of these areas. So if there's something in particular that you would like to be responsible for and lead those students, then you can certainly do that. But I was counting you along with my volunteers.
And I think also for all of us, if we have ideas of other people who are interested in volunteering, we can reach out to Chair Jennings Nunez, because I think we're probably looking for a few more, or no?
Are these adults or students?
It could be both.
So yes, please contact me if you're interested in volunteering. Contact me if you're interested in volunteering. We can always use more volunteers. Yes, thank you.
Sorry, I had a question. Are you doing volunteer shifts?
There's a Google form, and on the Google form, it has all the information that we need to collect, and it lets them choose a shift, either 11 to, I think it's 1:30, or 11 to 2, or 1:30 to 4:30. Or you can stay all day if you want to.
Sorry, Commissioner Chen, do you have that link to the Google form? Because I think for outreach, we want not only outreach for people to attend the event, but I think maybe we need support with outreach to volunteers as well, or are you sending that out yourself, Chair, or how do you?
It's been sent out to the schools. I sent it out to the high schools today. Matthew sent it out to some other individuals, but I will send it to Commissioner Chen also so that he can distribute. I'll send it to all of you, actually, and you can send it out to whomever you want. Yeah.
And I believe our youth ambassador, Aaron Situ, I think he's already sent the Google form out to some of the other students himself.
So I'm going to ask that we use the one Google form and not create another one. So I sent that actually to both of our youth ambassadors today. So if that's the one he's using, that's great. But just so all the information is kind of in one place, we'll use the one Google form.
Okay, so next I wanted to cover promotional materials and outreach. And so we all got a chance to look at the updated flyer. Matthew, you sent it out to everybody recently? Yeah. Okay. And it's on the website, that's right.
Mostly updated one here.
Okay.
The majority of the updates were included on the draft that's in the packet. There were two minor edits, fairly minor edits that were made on the, ooh. Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you. Let me just pull it up for you. So the webpage is updated since the last meeting, and then it has all of the links to the workshops, and then the okay. This one actually hasn't been updated, so let me just pull it from here. Can you pull it again? No, can you just take it off the screen? Okay, you can bring it up again. Okay, so the difference is the second bullet point, yoga, tai chi, and sound bath, and then the fourth bullet point, which has the descriptions updated to better match the 4 workshops. But otherwise, everything is the same as what's included in your packet. And then the translations were sent off to a third party. They came back yesterday. I've compiled it to where it's on one doc, and it will look, again, similar to the, sorry, give me 1 second, to the spring celebration back page. I think that was the one we did it for. It'll essentially look like this, but colorful. So it's in Spanish, Chinese, and Vietnamese.
And I have a quick question for you, Matthew, because I don't think we've covered this, but I just remembered to ask. Are we going to be putting it in the community services, the can't think of the newsletter? Thank you. I'm like, yeah. Is that going to be going in there?
Yeah, so it went in the most recent email blast.
Oh, it did. Okay, awesome.
And then it'll go again in September with all of the updated information, so people will have a fresh look at everything.
Super.
When are we going to have the flyers ready?
I sent an email off to a third party to get a quote. Depending on what that quote comes back at, then it should be, usually the turnaround is about a week for the printing. Requested about a quote for 500, so depending on what that comes back at, I'm sure that will be well under budget or on budget, but if it comes above, then we'll have to look at other options or cut down those amounts.
And this is the English version that we're talking about?
So it'll be English on the front and then all the translations on the back.
Got it, got it. So this is exactly what's going to be on the back right here, but more colorful.
Correct.
Yeah, so I know that we had some previous email correspondence and about the flyer, and I mentioned that, of course, we do have our guest speaker, Brandon Tsai, who, making a short comment, and I totally agree that, this event is not necessarily about the Monterey Park, even though that's a symptom of our mental health crisis. And I don't think that he should be featured, front and center. But I think even just mentioning, with featuring special guest Brandon Tsai, and given that he is kind of a very, very well-known icon in our community, it would be, not to have his face or anything, but just one line, and people will say that, oh, that's another draw, because I do know that, people do like to take selfies with him. People always want to, he's a very positive role model in our community, and it's very hard to get him. So the fact that he's coming, I think it's worth, again, not prominently with his face blown up, but just, one line is my thought of adding.
I'm just wondering, is it too late to add anything to the flyer?
So it's never too late to add anything. However, it will certainly delay the process in which we can push information out. So since it's already been sent off for translation, it would essentially be delaying it another week or two as we're getting closer to the event.
And I think that when we had previously talked, and I'm sorry that I wasn't at the last meeting, but I did watch, but I think when we had previously talked about the purpose of the landing, the splash page, was to post anything that was kind of in excess of what could be posted on a flyer. And so I do think it would be completely acceptable to add a line on here that says, with special guest, Brandon Tsai. And I think most folks would understand or would know who that is, and that could still be highlighted on the splash page, just for purposes of getting that flyer done. I think it would be helpful to just proceed that way, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, I think in light of the fact that I don't want to delay, but, I think what matters more is that digital media, on the social media, we can still have time for that. So I think that's a good, because we got to get the flyer out, so.
And Matthew, maybe we could also is it Clara? Maybe we can also let Clara know that that's a main point that she can include in the press release, so that the media knows as well that he'll be there.
Right, yeah, exactly. And he's also a major media draw, because every person in the media has, he's done like over 300 interviews.
Yeah.
So they all know who he is.
And I think that's a really appropriate place in order to get the media's attention for the event, so.
Have we drafted the press release?
So it is slated to, actually, let me pull up that date. Perfect, I'm glad that you have that. It's slated to go out on did I say the 18th?
I think you said the 18th, or maybe I wrote it wrong, 8th. Maybe
My apologies, I meant the 8th if I
Yeah,
did say the 18th.
No, I probably don't know how to write.
So it's slated to go out the 8th. The Public Information Office team is working on it now. I sent them all of the final information for the event on Friday, so they're drafting it now. I can certainly have them add the highlight of Brandon in the press release. But above and beyond that, it will go to our office first, and then it'll go to Commissioner Chavez Morris for a final review, and then it'll get pushed out by that timeline.
Yeah, it is the 8th. You wrote the 8th.
Do we have any other confirmed speakers or guests for the kickoff that we should also include?
Right. So as of right now, Matthew and Adrian were great about putting the request out to the folks that everyone discussed during the last meeting to try to secure their participation. Unfortunately, I followed up personally by phone with folks, There's no determination yet about who's coming. There are some folks who do have some conflicts, but there's no guarantee that anyone in particular is going to show up or not show up. So, but what we can do is just be aware of, it may be that day we find that there's some folks who showed up or some folks who said they were going to show up that don't. And so I'm sure Clara will be there. Is Clara going to be there to handle press in some respect? No?
And she typically will only show up if like a cable channel or something is coming, but we'll handle dignitaries in-house.
Okay.
But any media, she would.
Got it. Okay. So we can handle that. And then as media, if folks show up, we will let Matthew know and then handle the media response and let them know if there's any dignitaries that are available to speak on camera. Yeah. And we can also find that out ahead of time, do the dignitaries, which they usually do, want to speak on camera.
One other thing that you might want to consider is there were media requests on the day of last year, so you may want to designate who is going to be interviewed. And I think last time there was an English and a Spanish station that did a little live shot there. So
That's great. Who just remind me, who was on camera last year?
well,
spoke?
I was on camera. Commissioner Herrera was also on camera, and then I think the LA County Department of Public Health had a couple of people who were also interviewed. So they'll pick who they want to pick, but you might want to designate our chair or somebody who, when they come up and say who's going to speak about the event.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm only speaking from my experience working for another city agency. Will Clara develop speaking points for folks, or do we have to internally develop the speaking points?
Typically, it's right off the cuff, and we typically, which may be strange, but we typically don't hear until like the day before or 2 days before. So then she'll arrive if it's something that she needs to speak on, and she'll just have her items prepared. But if it's the members of the commission, essentially you would be doing the same thing, kind of going
We just have
based
to hope
off
for
of
a
what you
really
have.
slow news day. Yeah.
So with regards to media, I just want to make sure that we do incorporate the Asian media, right? I don't think I saw any of the presence last year, and I don't know if there was any efforts to reach out. So I would encourage that, to get that awareness out there.
So yes, that brings me to, this is kind of a part of my area. And so in my correspondence, I understand that, I'm not here to know who the media contact person is, but I think it's helpful to know which, because, I have a list of, because of the Monterey Park incident, I've contacted CNN, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Sangro, LA Times, like, you name it, I have a contact. So I need, we're not trying to invite everybody, all right? But I just need to know who we have, not who, but what outlets we are currently contacting, because, I don't want to sit here and, write everything down, and so I need to know who, just, for example, if we're inviting Pasadena Star News, San Gabriel Valley Tribune, LA Times, Channel 5, I don't know, that's what.
So I think from reading, because I was included on that email, is what Matthew was asking is if clearly we're not going to be on the CNN, New York Times level, but if you have contacts at those local, either print media or news or radio that you can provide to Matthew. So if you can provide 6 or 7, just your contact, and the city would like to reach out to them directly. Is that my understanding?
Right.
So I think he's just asking, instead of him providing you with who they have, if you could provide him with who you would like them to contact, that is the way.
Oh,
that it
yeah.
usually works.
Oh, okay, yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem, I'm just don't want to overlap, like, hey, I already, that's already, like, I had 6, and it's like, oh, I already had those, and it's like, okay, then why am I telling
But
you
if
everybody?
they already have them, then he just won't recontact them, but if he doesn't, then they will. So I think the easiest way to move it forward is just to provide that information to Matthew and Clara and have them look at it, and if it's a different contact, they will will contact them. If they've already contacted the person, then they won't. So if you don't mind, if you feel like it's redundant, I think that's just the way the city is.
Yeah, and I think it's helpful, even if you don't necessarily want to provide the contact, right? Like, you can just provide the list of different news outlets, and I'm presuming it's both print and television that they're reaching.
And radio, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, and radio. And then if they don't have something, perhaps Clara could contact Eric and reach out to find and Commissioner and find out if what his contact is, so that she can follow up with someone. I think it's just really essential that all of those communications be pitched from the city and responses go to the city to ensure that we don't have any overlap, or, we inadvertently don't realize that somebody's coming, right? I think that's just really important that they all go through the PIO.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
That's super helpful.
So yeah, I will, and then I will follow up with just a list of, stations or newspapers, whatever, and you tell me, hey, I don't, well, okay, we already have, for example, we're already contacting ABC, but, we don't have people for this, and then I will move forward. Does that sound like
It sounds fair enough. So do we know if they reached out last year to the Asian media?
So they go off of the same list. They don't cherry pick which media outlets are for each event. So the same list is used for every event if a press release is generated. And again, as I've mentioned before, not every event warrants a press release. An event this size typically doesn't warrant a press release, but we do one for this one. And so it's all LA news outlets, as well as local LA and San Gabriel Valley news outlets, including print, online, and broadcast. So that entire list would be sent off the same press release at the same exact time.
So my biggest concern with that is that we're missing a few. And to Eric's point, and I don't want to butcher what you're saying, is that we don't want to be overlapping. And if there's some way that we can help facilitate those connections, then I think Eric would be more than glad. Or I don't want to put words in your mouth, but this is what I'm hearing from you, that you'll be more than happy to provide that contact. But there's not going to be a way of us knowing who you guys are reaching out to, and it's just double work, right? I'm sure it's a huge, extensive list, but I just want to make sure that proper representation is there to communicate whatever transpires on the day of.
So perhaps some reassurance for the commissioners would just be a simple ask to Clara if she is covering all languages through those media outlets. If so, I think that might be sufficient, and then I think that would ensure that there's greater access to information about the event, and that, okay.
right?
And I'll be honest with you, I've worked with lots of PIOs before at the city, and it's like, they know that, they have really good working relationships with contacts at each of these news agencies, and I'm sure you could speak to that.
I will be more than happy to verify with Clara and make sure that we get an exact answer for you, but I can assure you that she reaches out to all languages. We've had better representation this last year at even our smallest events. I'm proud of things like the Easter egg hunt, where we were featured actually on the live news that morning, and our bigger events as well. And we've had folks from the World Journal, from KAZN, from several mainstream to very, very small Asian news outlets that do interviews with our council, our commissioners, and our community members. So I can assure you she's got those contacts and she fosters them, and she's proud, and Matthew as well is proud of the work that we do to get that out to the community. And I can say we've done a better job in the past year than we have done in the 3 or 4 years prior to that. So I'll get an answer for you for sure, but I can assure you that we are doing everything we can to reach all of the outlets.
I think it would be helpful also if there are some specific outlets that you want to make sure that they're contacting, if you could send that information to Matthew, then he can just take it from there and make sure that they're on the list. I think it's harder to just say in general that you want to make sure of X, Y, and Z, but if there are specific ones that it's Spanish language or other Asian languages that you want to make sure are contacted, if you could send that information forward to Matthew.
Right, and sorry. And also, I mean, are we gonna get are we gonna be updated on which media outlets I've RSVP'd? Or, because that's the other things. For example, I'm working on another Chinese American families mental health fair, and that's happening on September 9th. And already we have 12 Chinese media outlets confirmed. So that they've confirmed. So, you know, I mean, it's one thing to say, oh yeah, we're gonna contact everybody, and that's great, but, you know, it'll be good to know, for example, okay, as of September, 20th, no, within September 10th, we only have one Chinese rate, I'm just making it up. Okay, worst case scenario, of course, I understand Claire's gonna do a great job, but
Yeah. I just want to reiterate what Commissioner Chavez Morris said, that it's very difficult to get media outlets to make a commitment, because if there's another breaking story, they're out. So as Matthew mentioned, we usually don't know who's going to show up until they show up that day. But I do want to also highlight that a lot of the smaller news outlets may not have the staff, but if they receive the press release, that they will often run a story straight from the press release, or maybe just send a photographer. So it may not be an interview situation, but I think, those are just the kind of things. I don't think it's realistic for us to ask for Clara to give us an RSVP
no,
list.
I do think it is realistic, because like I said, I'm already helping a nonprofit, and that's one of our vendors coming, and I have right here a list of 10 Chinese media outlets confirmed. So I think it is actually a reasonable expectation, and I expect that. Then that's the least that the city can do, is to get a response, either yes or no. Not to say that they all have to say yes, but to at least get a response saying yes or no. If it's a no, then we can say, okay, for example, have a relationship with, X media outlet, and then I can follow up and get them to come.
Right,
So I would like to say that, so I appreciate the fact that you've got this great list. And I think that taking a snapshot of that and maybe sending that right now to Matthew so he can send that off to Clara is like a perfect first step. I will say, having worked with media, and I'm, and this is with the city of LA, and we had a huge event, thousands and thousands of people showed up. Could not get a commitment. The media will not say yes or no, we will be there. They will say, we will send someone if we can. And that's why I was saying, like, we have to hope for a really slow news day, because the slower the news day is, the greater the likelihood that they'll pick up something that's real feel good. That is just kind of the way it is with the media.
Well, I mean,
Let's have Commissioner Herrera, and then I know Matthew has a whole social media kind of a presentation to inform us some more, but
yeah. So I understand both points, okay? And I see where both of you guys, both commissioners are coming from, right? You're used to working with bigger media outlets, and some of the media outlets that we're familiar with, I believe Eric as well, we have ties to them, and we have built personal relationships where they can say, yeah, we're gonna come. And that's where we kind of want to know, and I think that's where Eric is getting at. If you can't get them to come because we don't have a relationship through the city, and for whatever reason maybe we do, then we can speak to them, if that's an option. And we can get that
why don't we have Commissioner Chen meet with Matthew offline to go through this and see if we can work it out in such a way so that he can use his contacts and expertise to get as many people there as possible, and also get some answers on the questions that he has, but we can take it out of this session and move forward to the next thing.
I just want to wrap up by saying that I want to actually affirm what Commissioner Chavez Morris says about the bigger media, because I know LA Times, NBC, all that, it's harder. So I agree with you there. I'm just saying with some of the smaller Chinese meat, and it's a different niche. Every market is different. So I want to confirm that with regards to LA Times, NBC, that is 100% true. But I'm just talking about particularly with the Chinese media, it's easier. That's all.
Okay, I think, yeah, hopefully you can take the discussion offline and decide on how you're going to approach different media outlets. A couple other things I wanted to go over. Matthew had the list of confirmed exhibitors. If you wanted to look over that in the agenda packet. And I think we got one more today as well. The Healing and Justice Center also RSVP today. So in addition to these,
So we already have 11 confirmed, and the 12th is on the way, and I believe
okay.
tomorrow we're gonna have the 12th ones too.
And I think we're gonna send AYC the packet for, they had another group that they thought was interested in exhibiting as well. And I also think that Emily Wu Chong is interested in having a booth. So that would put us up to,
Yeah, so
18?
on the map, I have set aside 15 community booths.
Okay.
I'm myself, sorry. 13 community booths. So there's a couple people, including the ones that you've mentioned, that have said, yes, we're interested, we just haven't received the application, so it wasn't included on the list. So I don't think that there'll be an issue meeting that 13. There may be one or two over by the time everyone trickles in, and we can rearrange on the map to accommodate them.
okay, does anybody have any other questions about the exhibitors? I think we're pretty close to the capacity. And then I also wanted to call attention to, there were some updates to the map, because I had a discussion with Matthew about putting the interactive activity booths actually alongside the exhibitor booths. So Matthew was able to kind of fit them in that grassy area, as well as we moved the chair yoga and sound bath to the tented area because of the shade and the even flooring. And then the volunteer rest area is moved to the Grapevine Arbor area. I also just wanted to update that for the yoga and sound bath person that I talked to, she quoted us 300 for doing that. So I just wanted to make sure that that was, like, everybody else had that information. And we're still waiting on getting a W-9 and a invoice from her. And I did talk to Emily Wu Trong, and she did ask for an honorarium for speaking. I did tell her that we don't have a lot of budget. So I did want to just bring it up to the HERE Commission if anybody else is for giving her something to speak. You know, I think in future years, I would like to request a little bit more budget from the city, just so that I feel like a lot of the things that are happening, everybody's doing it as a volunteer. Even, you know, the people who are speaking, the people who are coming, and you know, I do think that it's good to be able to pay people for their time and their expertise. And you know, I don't know if we want to give her an honorarium, but I just am mentioning it. She said she is willing to work with us in our budget, and she wants to be a part of the event. So
I don't know if we're voting or what we're doing, but I would say no. We have others who are presenting that day who are not going to be offered an honorarium. For future events, we can certainly discuss it, and we may have an overall budget for activities and for presentations, but I don't think that it was built into our budget, and if we offer it to her, then we would need to offer it to all of the other presenters as well.
Yeah, I agree with our chair, but I do agree with you also that in the future, I think we need to properly compensate people for their time, especially since a majority of the people who are doing this work are, you know, women or folks of color, and you know, the spirit of equity and making sure that people are properly compensated for their time and their efforts. We should consider adding that to the budget.
Yeah, and I think I agree with what everybody said, and you know, maybe there for this time, and I agree with with the chair that it's not really equitable to give one person and everybody else nothing. And so, but you know, it doesn't mean that we cannot find ways to add value to her as a city or as a commission. So we can think about, you know, for this time we don't have an honorarium, but you know, we will find ways to reciprocate other ways besides an honorarium to show that we do value your work, something like that.
Okay, and I also wanted to highlight a couple of changes that I made to the run of show, and Matthew printed out a new copy of it. So I did add one designated elected official to speak between Mayor Harrington or either the mayor or whoever speaks from city council, and then Brandon Tsai. And I allotted them, I mean, it's gonna probably be each around 3 minutes to speak. I kind of put 4 on there. And I have in there, George, the different raffle announcements. I'm putting in, I think, 3 different raffle announcements. I think the first one's at 1:20, and then we have one at 2:04, no, there's a, yeah.
I thought I was gonna be able to say when the announcements, no, I'm kidding, just.
Yeah, I think go ahead. I just had scheduled it in there.
Just tell me what to do, where to be, and I'll take care of it.
No, I want you to decide.
Just make sure I have a basket, okay, for the tickets.
Oh,
And a
okay.
couple of youth volunteers helping me out, that's all.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And then for the number of prizes, you're kind of good in what you're looking for and?
So basically cutting back on last year's amount. It was a lot last year, excessive. Yeah, so a little bit less, and I'll start looking out and getting those prizes.
Okay.
Let's expect 1/4 of whatever was there last year.
Yeah, I think even if we can kind of bundle them up too into like a little bit bigger prizes, it might be better. We can do like an announcement of 3 raffle winners per thing. So maybe like a 10 to 12 prizes total that are kind of maybe nicer.
That's what I was actually going to say, is that maybe you can kind of bundle them into like a basket or a box. Like I can buy a couple boxes.
I'm not gonna bundle them. If you guys want to help me do that, I'm not professional when it comes to arts and crafts like that, even though I tell my wife that I am. But no, yeah, if you guys want to be creative on that aspect, I'll deliver the gifts. If you guys want to be creative, please. I know some of you guys are very creative, but yes. Okay.
Okay, and I think that was it for me. Does anybody else have any input or questions?
One quick question is, it would be great if you keep me involved with the planning of the booths that you've given me responsibility. So I would appreciate that if I'm in the loop.
So Matthew, can you keep him in the loop? Because I don't think I'm gonna even get that information of like where the booth locations are. So if you want to just coordinate with Rick about that.
Yeah, I will definitely work with him, but I just wanted to, if there's anything coming from here, I'd like to be in the loop. That's all.
So along with this discussion, Matthew, there was some questions at the last meeting about investing in a social media initiative with our PIO, and putting a budget amount in that. I think it was up to $150, I think is what we said at the last meeting. Is that correct?
The proposal was for 300.
Oh, 300?
Let me double check.
I know that we did say that we would put that as a budget item, and we'll check to see what the budget item, how much it is. But there were some questions from Commissioner Herrera and maybe a couple others about what that social media strategy would look like. So Matthew did speak with Clara, the PIO, and put together a presentation for us.
This is fine. Okay, so I will thank Clara for putting this together and providing all of her expertise, because I will be quite honest and say I did not do any of the work on this other than relaying the information to you. So I will do my best to communicate the information to that she's prepared. I have general information beyond what's on here. Anything more she would need to speak on. But I think she did a great job of capturing everyone's questions during the last meeting in this presentation. So she in general, there's 30-plus accounts in which the Public Information Office pushes information out. The two that are the most commonly used are Facebook and Instagram. So it looks like Facebook has about 6,000 followers with a reach of about 8,300, and our Instagram page has about 4,900 followers with a reach of about 7,500. And you'll notice further in the presentation that there's two different demographics that the two social media outlets reach. So that's why she's highlighted these two. I will note one thing that's not included on here are the platforms for the Chinese text, which is WeChat. But there is limitation as far as the number of posts that can go on there. So it's not always the case that every event or every program can make it on there, since there is that limitation set forth. But the Facebook and Instagram ones, you can post as many as you want, but of course there's a rhyme and reason to it that she has put.
So yeah, because it's on WeChat, and I do follow our city's account. It's great. So we don't know we're gonna have space for that, or?
I don't have that information. I will follow up with her as far as whether or not it will be on WeChat. But yes, I don't have that information for you right now.
It would be very crucial, because I can tell you that most recently we held an event in honor of one of the deceased victims. I sent 4 posts to 4 different groups, and 300 people showed up. It took me 30 seconds. So that's the power of WeChat. So, we really need to get it on there. I guess all I have to do is, I'm in all these groups with like thousands of people, hundreds of people. I put one post, and who knows? We might get 100. I'm just telling you from my experience. Most recently, took me 30 seconds. 300 people showed up.
Yeah, Eric, but I think the issue is that they might not know how to navigate it in the way that we're so savvy on, and they might not have access to those groups that have 500 in one group, 500 in another group.
Right. What I'm saying is, but if we had that post, I can do that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. But if we didn't have the post, then what am I supposed to do?
Can I ask a question about that too? Is it simple enough that you can just share a snapshot of the flyer and a link to the webpage? Because I think that would be helpful.
That would be, that's another way we can do it too. I can do that as well, but I think it's the advantage of having on the WeChat account and sharing it, because then people also are connected directly to the city and to the official account, and they'll check that regularly rather than it's one-time deal. Of course, I can do that too. I'm willing to do the flyer in Chinese and share the link. And I don't have a problem doing that. I'm just saying that for the city, it would help be more advantageous so that the city can have build a relationship through the account.
Yes, no, I agree. And I was going to also ask, because I noticed that what was not included on here either, and I know it's been very helpful for the city of LA, is Nextdoor. And I'm sure that Claire has a Nextdoor account. I'm sure she does. It's really helpful in terms of pushing out information, especially for certain neighborhoods. Thoughts?
I'm sorry, I was going to let you finish. You don't have to stop just because I'm standing up. 2 things that are the focus of this presentation tonight. I'm almost positive we'll get it out on WeChat, and we do not use Nextdoor. We don't monitor it. We don't get into those conversations. But the reason you're not seeing WeChat on this presentation is because this was specifically related to buying those ads and amplifying those.
Oh, no, yeah.
This isn't the whole plan for getting media outreach for that event.
Oh, no, I'm not, the fact that they didn't include it, I'm not, that was just the outreach, so I am not putting, this is nothing against Clara. Again, I completely agree with you. This presentation is merely about the social media ads, because I don't think you can even do social media ads on WeChat, so.
Exactly, that's why and we get those posts out, and we look to all of you to send them on to your friends and relatives and groups. Our council does that, our commissioners all do that, and you amplify everything we do. So we're hoping that you'll all do that.
So maybe we can allow Matthew to go through the presentation, and then if there are any questions concerning it, we can take those then.
Thank you. So she's provided some information as far as the reach for Facebook, and with notations that it does hit a wider LA demographic versus central here in San Gabriel. It's about 17.5% in LA, 17.3% in San Gabriel, and then goes down from there. It's more suitable for informational campaigns. I think a good example of that, which I always refer back to, is the drought, right? So if we're trying to save water, informational campaigns and resources, things that are more than just, attend an event. Facebook is well suited for areas like that. And information that needs to be designed in formats that best cater to a more mature audience, often with a retired lifestyle or one with school-aged children. So the highest age group that you can see is 35 to 54, and then it tapers off again from there. And there's still the strong numbers between the 25 and 34 age group. And then the final point here is that consumption lies equally on text and images. So versus where you'll see Instagram, it's very image heavy. The text that's included in the post is just as valuable as the image that is on the post. Here we have Instagram, so it is more San Gabriel specific. You'll see that much drastic, that percentage drastically higher than with Facebook at 22.3%. The audience skews younger compared to Facebook, with the majority of the users between 25 and 44. And more suitable for awareness campaigns. Images and videos work best for this platform. A great example of it is the reel that the office did for the Ride SG program, the transportation program. And that had a massive response. We also did one for lifeguard recruitment, and that had a very positive response from the community of users. So information should be designed in formats that best cater to a younger audience now beginning to start their own families. So the way in which the information is packaged on Instagram will vary as well. So sometimes she will notice that a reel is better suited for this particular project versus a post, or a story may be better suited, or a combination of all of those items. The most time consuming for that office is typically the reels, because it's putting everything together versus a static post, which takes a little less time. And consumption, as I mentioned, lies heavily on images or graphics. So you'll notice when there's a post, there's the image that is at the forefront, and then it only allows a few characters before you have to click read more, right? So that's where you can see that the text isn't as important to some of the users as the actual images. So that image may be more impactful to encourage them to view the information that you're looking for. And consumption habits now focused on reels and stories rather than posts. And you'll notice that they'll do posts on there's too many different types. Stories on the day of, and it may just be a story of the flyer, or if they're there and can get image, they'll be able to see people in action at the event to encourage more people to come in and attend the event for the rest of the day. Or they'll put it in advance, so in that way if people are just scrolling through their stories, they'll get it at a snapshot, and then they can always click the link to get more information. So now there are two types of social media advertisements, and I'll be honest and say that I had to read this a couple times to be sure that I could adequately explain it to you all. So there's two different kinds. There's the boosting an existing post and then creating a new advertisement or post. So with the boosting existing posts means that you've already published that post and now you are paying to boost it to reach additional people, right? So let's say your audience is 5,000 subscribers or people that are already receiving San Gabriel information. You would pay to get more viewership on that particular post. Now, the second one requires a bit more forethought in that you have to create a new advertisement or post or video to reach a specific set of audience, which you can pinpoint exactly who it's going to versus the boost, which will be a bit more generic. Now, the boosting versus ad-specific strategy. So determining factors include the goal of the campaign. So this is what the Public Information Office uses to then decide which one is best suited. The goal of the campaign: awareness versus call to action, results desired, target audience, budget constraints, and sweet spot to maximize return on investment, content quality and availability, difference in ad post algorithm, and the length of campaign runtime. And I'll make a note that the difference in ad post algorithm changes quite frequently. So an answer that she may give you now may differ in a few months from now or a few days from now. That was an issue that we were having quite a few years ago before the staff now, is that it would change so frequently that even staff are having a hard time trying to keep up with that. Staff as in our department. Of course, the Public Information Office was doing a fantastic job of that. So it can change. I did just want to point that out. And posting versus ad-specific main points. Boosting existing content. It's the more affordable option. It's a preferred option when there's a limited budget. Will reach more people, so a broader reach of people, and cannot pinpoint the exact audience that is needed or wanted to be reached. The creating specific ads, again, more forethought in that, would be more expensive, must spend more to generate a real impact, and reaches a smaller but more specific audience. So again, you can choose who and which you want that specific post to reach. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I think Commissioner Chen had one, and I think what we voted on, or what we decided to do, was to set aside a budget to boost a boosting budget. Now that you've said those words, so Commissioner Chen.
Right, so I just want to make sure that, we are focused on, the boost, because I've run these ads just for fun before, for different, for the speech and debate team and various, just trying it, so I'm aware. But yeah, so we're targeting just San Gabriel Valley, right? Making sure that we're not trying to target like downtown LA or, San Fernando Valley, or I'm assuming, because I was kind of looking for the precise marketing strategy. I mean, this is good at a 101, what is social media marketing? But I was more interested in knowing what exactly the strategy will be to optimize, to make sure that we actually have an optimal strategy. So, but again, I assume that, I don't know, and George, does this address your concerns, or, because I know that you're the one that had a question about it.
Right, my concerns were, and I appreciate that Clara took the time to formulate this great presentation, and I hope that everybody got opportunity to learn a little bit how this works, right? I do agree that we should boost, but I also agree that we should create content. And as far as the content, yes, we should push the flyer once, and then create a couple videos. I mean, I know that's time consuming, but I've seen the quality of work that's being done right now with the city, and they're like on par. And I think that's gonna get the most attention, these short, quick 15-second videos. With that said, I just wanted to be mindful. I know we had like about $350 for the advertisement, right? And that's what, vaguely, what I remember.
Go back and look, because I don't know, and we keep going up every time somebody says it. I started with 150, then 300, now we're at 350. We need to look back at the minutes.
My understanding was 350 and 150 for the pizza, right? That was my understanding. So with that said, and we look back and figure out what the actual numbers were. So I do have an action item to follow up on, right? With regards to the Papa John pizza. So I did reach out, and they generously are going to donate the pizza. So that means $150 more for advertisement. Okay, but I just wanted to stress that the whole point was, let's be strategic on the way that we advertise, and let's not just, okay, whatever you guys do, but let's also have a say-so on what kind of content and how we boost out, right? So again, another $150 that can go towards advertisement, and I believe that's what we were agreeing on the remaining of the monies to go towards advertisement. Right?
So I don't remember that conversation. I do appreciate the pizza, and I do remember you offering to make that connection, so that's great. I don't remember a conversation that if we were able to get that donation made, that we would take those funds and put it towards advertising.
Right, and
That
that was,
could be a
that was
suggestion.
never, that conversation never happened, correct? And, but the conversation that did happen was that we had extra funds there, about 300, 350, and we were already gauging towards, okay, we already took care of everything, so let's make sure, you know, that can be used for advertisement, and that's what I remember. So I am assuming that clearing up a couple extra funds would clear us up to use it for advertisement. But again, I'm open to whatever the commission wants to do with such money. Personally, I want to get one of those banners so that we can reuse it constantly. It's kind of interesting. I know it's expensive, but it's kind of interesting to continue to see Alhambra banners in the city of San Gabriel and no San Gabriel banners. Why are they doing it? And I think they're really successful when it comes to their events. And guess what? A lot of those banners are being reused. Matthew, how many times have we reused some of those? At least 2-3 years already, the same one, but we've done it strategic, right? They've done it strategic where they're just clearing up the dates, right? But again, we might not have the funds this go around, but it's something something meaningful and something worth considering, right? I know you were going to say something, Matthew. Go ahead.
So I have a suggestion, which is perhaps, Matthew, you and I can work with Clara to come up with like just a schedule for when posts are going to hit social media. And then what we can do also is leverage the reach of our providers that are going to be there that day by asking them to either share our post or to share it, the graphic with their audience as well. And then we can, I can make sure that we're getting several posts that are hitting on both Instagram and Facebook, and I myself will commit to posting something on Nextdoor, the flyers, so that hits at least in my community. Does that sound sufficient to folks?
I think that's a great idea. Now, yeah, so on the $150, I mean, like I said, I'm kind of open to any, do you have any thoughts on how you want to allocate that, or?
So I think, one, we have to check and see what the allocation is, or we have to designate something today. If we want to say 300, 350, I think we do have that available in the budget, and we can just set that amount today because I don't remember what it was last time. And then I do want to give our youth ambassadors time there to make any comments. They're usually very actively participating, but I think school is occupying a lot of thought tonight. Yeah.
I would like to add a comment because based on the data that's seen in the paper and the presentation, and you mostly see a lot of in Facebook and Instagram how they have more people engaged between the ages of 30 and 40, but I was surprised when I saw on Instagram there's like a few teenagers, and I feel like with the social media team we need to I guess create more content as centered with youth that can be engaging, and it's because, well, we as youth ambassadors, we can contact the school, or as Aaron, he has connections, but that's just our school. Like, there's also other middle schools, like high schools, especially one that's really near San Gabriel. And like, none of us, well, as youth, know people that are from there, or we know few, but like, we need to center more content with possibly the youth because, well, there's people here in the youth and we need more people, teens, to be engaged with the community. So I was hoping with social media we can have at least content, that can be, engaging with the youth. That's all.
I definitely agree with what Kelly says, and I think one way we can do that is making there's this bulletin announcements every morning. I think us two can work on that. But aside from that, I think one critical factor missing from our strategy is not so much that we don't have social media outreach, But there's also other forms of outreach, and I think one that's really effective is usually word of mouth. Like people who have attended the event previously or any of the commissioners can just start reaching out to people and start telling them. Because one thing that's kind of hard to interpret from this data is that you have a certain number of views, but what you don't know is how many of those views convert to actual people who attend the event. But I think that when you have word of mouth and you really tell someone about the event, you develop that personal connection, there is a much higher likelihood of them attending compared to social media. So I think we should also look into some like more in-person strategies as well.
I wanted to ask the youth ambassadors, now that you're back in school, are there any clubs or organizations that may have chapters at the other high school that you might be able to engage them to, I don't know, recruit or at least spread the word with some of their counterparts at other campuses? Is that something that sounds realistic, or what are your thoughts about that?
We can reach out to some clubs. Just, it's gonna have to be in a couple of weeks because at the beginning of the school year, they're always finalizing the clubs, making sure everything's set. So right now we can't do anything, but once everything's finalized, we can start moving from there.
And I've sent the flyer out to the Key Club, the Kiwanis Key Club representatives who work at San Gabriel High School and at GHS, and I've sent out the flyer to the local high schools, so Del Mar, San Gabriel High School, and another one. I didn't send it to San Gabriel Academy, but I can. So we are reaching out to, and Matthew had all of the schools, the elementary and middle school administrators on his email. So we are reaching out beyond just Gabrielino.
Okay. Oh, do you have something else?
Yeah, like they said, I was just thinking, this is just thinking out loud. I mean, if you guys had $150, as a, like you said, Aaron, whether it's in person or whatever ideas, I mean, maybe you guys, if you guys want to come up with, if you don't have to, I'm just thinking out loud. But the other idea is to reach out to the other schools. This is, for example, to reach out to the other speech and debate coaches. They have, their own programs, and we can do that.
I'm just wondering, with these conversations and the PIO is basically kind of taking on the social media posting. I think this is great input, but I don't know if this is too detailed or what kind of input they take in from us as the HERE Commission, and if this is the kind of conversation that might be better offline. What are you thinking, Matthew?
Sure. So I will certainly convey to her all of the notes that were provided during tonight's meeting. I am 90% sure she won't be able to accommodate every single request just because time is limited and the space and slots in which the posts happen are limited. But she can try to check as many of the boxes as possible.
I also just want to, not to bring everybody down a little bit, but just as far as the expectations for the event, I think we are doing so much more than we did last year, talking about outreach and talking about the ways that we're letting people know. And so I just feel, I feel so great knowing that, because last year we had a pretty good turnout. But, to think that this year can be just so much more with these extra, outlets that we're meeting, that we're, sending messages to, and then all of the new connections that we're making. So I think we're all doing a really good job.
And just to emphasize what Aaron said, personal connections are going to be the key. So all of the things that everyone has suggested in terms of social media, you can certainly push out on your own. You can contact anyone you want to contact and share the flyer and information. So aside from what the city and what the PIO will be doing, each of us as individuals are also expected to promote and support this event. So thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Kelly.
And I think it's going to be a highlight to showcase what was happening, thanks to you, in the green space. Because when I showed them a particular video that we created, they were all super impressed. People that I sent it to, they were super impressed, and they wanted to know where this was taking place at. So we might have people that remember it from last year. They want to come.
Well, we're not going to have the same the setup as last year. We're going to have it more, we're not going to have the aerial stuff up this
Sound
year.
bath?
Yeah, but we will have a sound bath, but it'll be kind of a smaller scale and not in the green space. Yeah.
I just had a thought, which could be used for future promotional videos, because I do have a friend, he just finished aerial drone training, and he's looking to create content. And so he could possibly do it pro bono, and we can use, the footage for future, to help our city market itself, for whatever purposes, and for even future content creation purposes for future marketing. Is that, I don't know if that's
I don't.
a thing.
If you can arrange it, let Chair, Commissioner Bernhard know.
And I'm sure it's
Um,
probably, I
well-
mean, it sounds like a wonderful idea, and it's probably something that the city has to vet as far as the permit and all that, being that we have people ahead. But I'm sure if he's flying a drone, he has all that. But I think the city will have to go through their protocols and see if that's okay.
Yeah,
But
there's rules associated with that, and I'm sure your friend knows, but you have to have a special permit. You also have to declare a special permit through the FAA, and that's usually if you're within a certain area that there's a flight path, there's all sorts of rules and requirements. So I would just, I think this is something we can take offline, but it is a pretty extensive thing, and usually have to ask for that like 3 to 4 months ahead of time.
So who can facilitate on that? Like, can the city help on that with his friend? Can he connect you?
See if it's even something that is doable, and then funnel the information to Matthew and Commissioner Bernhardt. And I'm just, at this point, trying to move us along.
One
so
last
that we
thing,
can.
Chair, I'm so sorry. Just if we want to make the decisions about the budget, that's the thing that maybe we want to make a motion for today. So if we want to put more money towards advertising, does somebody want to motion for that or propose something?
Before you vote on the budget, my apologies, not to draw the discussion out further, but for the photography, it's my understanding that the volunteer photographer is no longer available to take those photos. So we do have a photographer that we use for the majority of our special events. I've reached out to him for a quote. I haven't heard back, but for this length of time, I would imagine there's quite a bit that needs to be captured for the purposes of the grant. And that you'll be somewhere in the range of about $450 for the entire event. So I will throw that back to the commission and see if that's something that you'd want to include. You do have the funds for it between the $2,500 that the city provided. So it is available, but if that's how you would like to spend the money. And then the initial proposal last meeting was $300 on social media. Now, where that ends tonight will be left up to the commission.
I would like to say we definitely need a photographer, so if everyone is in agreement, we definitely need to have some visuals for the grant reporting, so.
So if I may, I happen to know also a photographer that I'd like to link you, which will have access to 2 photographers rather than 1. And I think they charge about the same, $400, but we can take this offline.
So, are we kind of deciding how we're going to allocate the funds? Because my thought is, I have 2 thoughts. One, the same drone person could possibly do the photography for free. Possibly, I could talk to him. Again, part of the building his portfolio, number 1. And number 2, speak on the George's point on the banners. So is it like, if we don't use it, we lose it kind of deal? Or do we say, hey, we save this money, and we know the banner's expensive, next year we'll get more money, then we can do a banner?
Since it's general fund monies, it wouldn't be something that rolls over from year to year. There is about 500 remainder from the previous grant that was acquired, but essentially you're already eating through those funds. But anything remainder would be just from the general fund, so you'd be requesting money during the next budget cycle for the following fiscal year. So if the commission wanted to request $3,000, they could at that time, but it would just be a separate request.
So my thought is, because we're getting so close to this event, that we need to have a paid photographer, because we need to lock somebody in contractually who can do the work. I would hate for us to depend on somebody else on a volunteer basis and then have them maybe, have us that spot taken because they get a paid gig. I think having a contract with a photographer as soon as possible is essential to making sure we're on their calendar.
I agree with that thought. Yeah, I mean, because of the grant, we will want to make sure that part, that's a good investment. I agree with you.
So right now, we don't have any money that I see on the 2023 proposed budget for a photographer, so do we need to put a line item for that and then decide how much we want for the social media boosting? I don't think that we can do the street banner, I think is what Commissioner Herrera is referring to. I think the last time we heard it was a quote of $1,500, so we won't have enough money left over for that. So whatever monies we have, sounds like it needs to be allocated towards the photographer. I would still leave the $100 pizza budget because it might go to cookies or whatever. I don't want to get rid of that food budget just for now. The yoga demonstration is there, which I assume includes the sound bath also?
And actually, so yoga and sound bath is down to 300, so we do have 200 more in that.
And as far as the food,
What are we working with, Matthew?
I can do the math just.
so if I may, as far as the food, I also 90% sure that I can get Paris Baguette. I had a meeting with them to donate some pastries. So I think we should be covered as far as the food for the
I
volunteers.
think that's excellent. I really appreciate it, but I still don't want to get rid of that $100. If we don't spend it, then I guess it goes back to the city. But I want it to remain a line item on the budget. If for no other reason, just for next year, if we don't have someone on the commission who can obtain all of that, that they haven't forgotten that that needs to be built into the budget.
But I don't think that's going to happen. Would that happen, Matthew?
When is your term
If
up?
we don't,
So that's what I'm saying. When you are no longer
Yeah.
on the commission, I don't know if someone else is going
who's
to have
saying
the.
I'm not going to be in the commission next year?
No, I'm saying it.
Yeah, no, I
All
understand.
of our terms end.
I know what you
So
mean.
when that ends, then if we don't have someone, this is a line item that
No,
will need to
absolutely.
remain on the budget.
And could that be, is there a workaround on it? Because I don't want to hinder it, right? If it's not going to be something that's going to be a line item, then if we need to account for the food, then I feel, then let's account for the food. Is that going to hurt us next year?
For the purpose of this event, since this is the last meeting prior to, I would recommend keeping it on in the offset that you can fall back on it, since the commission will have either agreed or not agreed to spend that 100 or whatever amount is set to it. For the purpose of the following fiscal year, it will really come down to the way in which it's proposed to the council at that particular time.
So let's say it does not get used. We get the food donated, and then we have allocated those funds, which 100 or whatever the case might be. If we end up not using it at all, is it going to negatively impact us next year?
So I can't speak to the council's decision-making process, but I will say that they could use that as a decision-making factor, but it won't be the only factor that's presented to them.
So I would like to also just kind of second the idea of keeping it on the budget for a slightly different reason, and I think Matthew kind of alluded to it, is that it is always good to kind of have these items on your budget just in case something happens. And if you're not able to, and not because you didn't do anything, but if the vendor for some reason, does not come through for us for any reason, we will at least have it on the budget and we can send somebody to go get pizzas really fast. Just because when you depend on other people who are donating, sometimes it happens that folks promise, but something falls through, right? And it's just having that line item on there guarantees that we can buy that food if we need to.
I understand the point. I totally understand the point. And it's my responsibility to deliver on it. If they said they're going to donate and for whatever reason, well, I'll put it out of my pocket. I have no problem doing that. It's just $150 for pizza that's going to go for a good cause. But to the point is that if we're keeping it there and we're not going to use it for food, and we're worried that we might not have food, I'm having a hard time grappling around that idea, because then if that's the case, then just have Papa John's, just pay Papa John's to the pizza then.
I don't know if we need to spend a lot more time on $150 out of the $7,500 that we're looking to spend. If we don't spend it, I think we just don't spend it. If you want me to spend it, I'll spend it. But we should just leave this item and decide on the other two items that are not currently here, which is the photography and the media boosting.
Well, I don't think it's a small thing, actually. Actually, I feel that we can't negate this because maybe I'm not gonna be here next year, and if we're gonna have to have a budget allocated for food, then let's pay the vendors for the food.
Then, so if your suggestion is that we should pay Papa John's for the pizza, that's why we budgeted initially. You offered at the last meeting to have them donate it, which was incredible.
Oh, I
But
don't-
if we would prefer, since we have a budget, to use the budget, then let's use the budget.
Yeah, I totally understand, but what I'm I'm having a hard time understanding is how we're saying, hey, well, your point is not important because it's only $150, but I believe that I sit in the commission that deals with human equity, access, and inclusion, where every single voice matters and every single voice counts. So when you try to dismiss me on my proposal and say, well, it doesn't matter, then I'm starting to feel like
So
I'm not
I
being.
didn't say it doesn't
I'm
matter.
not being included here.
Commissioner Herrera,
And
what
to the
is,
point-
what is your suggestion?
So to the point, 150 that's allocated for the money, and this is what I'm asking, 150 that's allocated to the money, if we do not spend it for whatever purposes that we assigned it to, would it be taken away from our dock next year? And if
So
it's
I
not, then why
believe-
not spend it on something else?
So I believe that the city council will look at our overall budget. I don't think they're gonna go line item by line item and say, you didn't spend $150 on food, so we're not gonna give you 150. They're gonna say, we allocated 3,500 and you spent 4,000. Or we allocated 3,500 and you only spent 2,800. So now you only need 2,800. I don't think that this individual line item for $150 for pizza is going to be detrimental to the budget next year.
Agreed. Can I just help with this perhaps? And I think what you're saying is it's overruns and underruns. If we come out with an underrun and we are actually saying we were able to produce this event with this much money, but really the services and the goods was this much money, then we're not representing the event in its full cost. And so that allows us to next year, if we do need to pay a vendor, then we will have to explain why there was that incremental cost. And I have to be honest with you, I actually think in order to kind of avoid this, that the more so that we can literally just pay the vendors, I think it actually helps, because then it is a true cost associated with the event.
Right, and that's the point. So is that what we're trying to do here? Because if we say we're gonna set aside $150 or $100 in case something happens and we end up not using it at all, so then that defeats the purpose.
So I would vote that we just go ahead and pay for pizzas so that we have it contractually written in. This vendor is going to provide us with this at this time, and then it's on the budget. It is completely paid for. It is something that is a standing line item on.
So why not use this money for advertisement and spend it there? That's the argument that I'm making. If we're gonna set it aside and we're not gonna use it, then it defeats the purpose of getting a vendor that I know is gonna deliver.
Then we need to itemize it as discretionary funds versus a specific item, I think.
Yeah, so I think, what we can do is, I think the point taken is that, we just want to have that as a line in the future, but, for the time being, we can just spend it on more marketing. I mean, is that not
That's exactly, let's not save it to the side and say, maybe we'll spend it, maybe we won't spend it, but then if we don't spend it, it's gonna affect us negatively. And now, if it's gonna be a blanketed item where nothing is really gonna be categorized, okay, you have so much to spend on this and so much to spend on that, then what does it matter? Then we can just go ahead and spend it.
So I would like to make a motion, and that is, number one, we need to secure the money for the photography, plus whatever's left over, we can spend for the marketing budget, and just leave the item as it is. That's my proposal.
I want to second that.
What you're saying, to leave the $100 for food? but then the rest of it to say, or you're saying that the $100 for food, we're doing it in a discretionary fund somehow, or we're setting aside a certain amount for marketing? I'm just clarifying what your motion is.
And is it 100 or 150?
I think I'm not clear on what the numbers are and if there is additional funds once we have to deal with
Said-
the photographer.
Right, so Matthew,
I
how
run
many-
through it?
well, what are we
Yeah.
left with in terms of funds?
So the flyer printing's 400, pizza 150, yoga demonstration 300, Tai Chi demonstrations at 0, activity supplies is 300, live translation service is at 5,000, and then pending would be social media boosting of 300, photography at 450, leaves a balance of 6,800, or excuse me, whew. Sorry, the 50 threw me off. One moment. Leaves a balance of 600.
So after we have 600 left over. After we hired the photographer, we still have 600?
Correct. So if you'd like more flyers to be printed, you can put more money there, or if you'd like just to have a discretionary fund for when we do get quotes back, staff can spend it to the areas in which will better market the event in whatever form it may be, or
Also, if you are interested in having that set up or the aerial stuff, we can approach them to see if they will do it for that much money too. So that is an option.
I think we need to consider that we're 5 weeks away from this event. So I wouldn't want to add too much more to our plate at this time. I mean, we should be doing outreach to get people to come at this point. So I do agree with Matthew that I think it would be very useful to have a discretionary pot of money for whatever contingencies happen on that day. You know, Commissioner Herrera, you have been a champion in getting us donations and community support, but we have one meeting left essentially, and we'll be a week out from the event. So for me, you know, getting pizza for the volunteers is fantastic, but we may need to get them some snacks. We may need to get them some drinks. I mean, to me, having that $150 as just a contingency for whatever may happen, you know, that's kind of how we rolled with it last year, you know, when we didn't necessarily have enough food for, or pizza for the kids. So
We have a motion on the floor. I don't know if Commissioner Chen wants to modify.
Yeah, this is what I'll modify it just slightly. So I'm having make a motion to hire the photographer for $150. And since we have $600 left, I motion then to have $100 additional allocated to the social media, and we have a $500 cushion for discretionary. That's my proposal. That's my motion.
would you mind going through those amounts one more time?
Yes. So $450 for the photographer, which you said after that there's $600 left. So we'll allocate $100 of that to more social media marketing and leave the $500 remaining for any contingency if we need to buy whatever the reason, whatever additional cost, discretionary fund. And that's, so then that way we have, the photographer, with the ad spend, and everybody, discretionary funds. So I think we cover everybody.
Thank you.
Do we have a second? So we have a second by Commissioner Khan. So just to run through those again, flyer printing 400, pizza volunteers or food 150, the yoga demonstration is 300, activity supplies 300, live translation is 5,000, 450 for the photographer, an additional 100, which brings us to what for the media boosting?
400?
So 400 with the additional 400. 400 for the social media boosting and 500 for discretionary funds is the budget that's being put forth. Can we take the vote?
Commissioner Brandhog,
Aye.
Commissioner Travis Morris, Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Herrera,
Nay.
Commissioner Khan,
Aye.
Vice Chair Goto,
Aye.
and Chair Jennings Nunez.
Aye.
Motion passed by a vote of 6 ayes, 1 nay, and 0 abstentions.
I think we're good on the Mental Wellness Expo. Does anybody have last remarks? Because I think we gotta move on. Okay.
Okay, thank you, everyone, for all of your input. So we'll go to commission reports. And just, Commissioner or Vice Chair Goto didn't give us an update on workshops, but that is certainly a very solid part of our Wellness Expo, and she will give you the finals at our September meeting. So commission reports, each commissioner may address the HERE Commission in public on matters of general information and/or concern. This is also the time for commissioners to report on conferences and/or meetings that they have attended. And we'll start with our youth ambassadors, if you have anything that you'd like to report.
Well, I haven't been able to attend since I was very busy, but there's been one event where Mr. Herrera has invited us as the youth ambassadors with helping pick up trash near my local park. I'm so sorry if I mispronounce it, but it's Vincent Lugo Park. It was pretty hot that day, but yeah, I feel like more part of the community, and I hopefully I will be doing more stuff, and hopefully I can get more involved with my community that way. But that's all.
Last week, I attended the Cause Summer Soiree, I think is how you say it. It's an organization that promotes voting rights, especially focused around Asian American communities. And that past event, they celebrated, I think, about 30 years of existence, and they've been doing a really good job so far. So, great job to them.
So yeah, I also attended the summer soiree of CAUSE, and I'm a CAUSE. CAUSE stands for California Asian Americans United for Self-Empowerment. And so the soiree, usually they have a gala every year, but this was a soiree. It was at Blossom. It was in our city, the Blossom Market, and it is the largest gathering of AAPI elected officials in all of the U.S. So it was an awesome event. Although there was one issue, a couple of things that did draw concern, specifically I think addresses our commission, and I don't know, we perhaps want to make it an item in the future, which is one, they had invited the city council, months in advance, and the city told them that, oh yeah, everybody knew, but when I talked to Tony Ding, he said he had no idea. So, and another city council member had to get in through another channel, but bottom line is, I don't know. I'm not. All I can tell you is that that's what happened, and people felt like they weren't invited. So I felt bad because they weren't. As a cause alum, they were invited. But then when Tony Ding checked with the city, then they did tell me that he was invited. So that's good. So I don't know what happened there. So I don't know if it's because the city council didn't check their email. I don't know. So there was, I felt bad about that. And then apparently there was a lot of issues. They didn't, I don't know. Again, this is the largest gathering AAPI elected officials. And there were many issues with, like, they were asked to hire an architect to measure the parking lot, and they could not even, the issue was they just could not get a response. And they didn't even get the permit approved until the day of, even though they were doing so many different things. And I just felt in a way, because I'm personal friend, and again, I'm alumni and I'm personal friends with the executive director, and this is something very big for the AAPI community. And again, I'm sure that, I don't know where the gap is, so, but I would just want to make sure that, that they, and I hate to, in a way, they kind of feel a little bit disrespected, as maybe is it because they're API organization? I don't know. Again, I do not know I'm not privy to the details. All I know is that there were a lot of challenges that seemed superfluous. So I don't know if this, I can, address this in a future item. How exactly, our mission, we want to make it very accessible to all, include all AAPI, all community groups and all organizations. So I cannot speak to the details. All I can tell you was what was relayed to me.
Thank you, Commissioner Chen. I can speak to a little bit of the details. So they actually held the event in the Mission Playhouse parking lot. They contacted the city for use of the facility, and then they contacted, and it was a gal named Wendy. I don't know exactly what position she is, but she contacted at City Hall about whether or not they would need anything else, and it was indicated at that time that they would need a temporary use permit, which is not something that we've typically required of groups. We've not done that previously. So Wendy and I have had conversations, and I've indicated that we would be willing to take this to the city council, because there was also a fee that was associated with that, and that was not something that we gave them the information on previously, because we've not done that for use of the Mission Playhouse parking lot. So I will talk with staff about the getting the information to the city council. That was not within our department, but the Mission Playhouse portion of it was. And if you have contact with Wendy, feel free to have her reach out to me. We have talked several times. So.
Yeah, so if we can have, maybe we can just have a meeting and to sort things out, and maybe there's a misunderstanding. I don't know. I just want to make sure that everything is made right. Maybe there are some part, maybe there's some things that it was asked of them that they didn't do. I don't know. I just know that they, I want to make sure that everybody's happy, the city's happy, they're happy, that whatever happened, we can fix and move forward. That's, again, that's the first time they did it, so here,
Yeah.
and I would like to, it'd be great to do it again, because they spent a lot of money.
Just want to be clear, there was nothing with it being an AAPI organization. There was nothing.
So yeah, that's what that's what they're saying. I'm only reflecting what they said to me.
Okay.
So.
All right, thank you.
So just a couple of things. Commissioner Khan didn't let you know, but I'm sure that the backpack giveaway that he participated in with ICNA Relief was a huge success. I don't know if you want to let people know about it.
Well, I didn't think about that. So we had about upwards of 860 bags got off. We had 1,000 plus, and we left almost about 150 with the Gabriel School for further distribution. So it was a pretty grand success. We had about almost 45 minutes of streamed cars coming in, and we even to the end of the block of San Gabriel, and we were registering all the cars all the way there. So, and the superintendent was there, and I think he was, from the beginning to the end, he stayed, and he was pretty excited about all that. Thank you.
So we thank them for that participation in our community. I participated in the city's backpack giveaway on August 10th under a different hat, from my Kiwanis hat, and National Night Out also, which were both really successful events despite the over 100-degree heat. People still came out, so that was good. I do have two concerns that I want to bring up. One concern are comments that were made today concerning the recent vote with the pickleball. That I do think in terms of community engagement and community information that might be something that we want to discuss further in a meeting and in some sort of agenda item, because I do feel like there were some very legitimate concerns that were expressed that weren't addressed sufficiently to make the community members feel like they were being heard. So I do think that that would be an appropriate item for the HERE Commission to make a recommendation for further investigation about, or further discussion at least about. And then the second is another public comment that was made at the city council meeting, and hopefully Mark can give some follow-up, but there was a gentleman there who had a really significant issue in terms of handicap parking in our city, and had an issue specifically also about finding a handicap space at the police department. And and said that there is no handicap parking available at our police department. And I don't know what came of that. He was going to speak with Interim Chief Nakamura after the meeting, but that is 100% within the jurisdiction of the HERE Commission. If we don't have adequate parking facilities at our San Gabriel Police Department for for people with disabilities. So I would like to bring that back and maybe have someone from Public Works or someone come and discuss that with us.
I just wanted to highlight an upcoming event that's happening this Saturday on August 26th at the National Center for the Preservation of Democracy in partnership with JANM and the Dr. Huey P. Newton Foundation. They will be presenting Solidarity, the Black Panther Party discusses the history and future coalition building. It's taking place from 2 to 3:30 p.m. And the background is decades ago, the common experiences of Japanese Americans and Black citizens developed into a coalition that worked to support their communities. The panel will be discussing the historical context of the Black Panther Party's work with the Japanese Americans, and what a future roadmap for continued and expanded solidarity with all marginalized communities looks like in 2023 and beyond. So there is a ticket price that's $16 for adults, it's $9 for students and seniors, but it does also include general admission to the Japanese American National Museum in downtown Los Angeles. So that's it for me.
No comments.
So yeah, it brings joy to my heart to hear that our both commissioners, Kelly and Aaron, participated at the event that we had for the San Gabriel for Change cleanup, SG4C, and to hear that from the youth that, you know, it makes you feel like you belong and makes you feel like you're part of the city. That's the whole purpose of that youth group, and you guys are taking it to the next level of being involved. We were about 30 plus youth there. I'm not including myself, I'm no longer youth, but of youth, we had about 30 people cleaning up the park on a hot summer day, and it was very impressive. So thank you so much for saying that. It means a lot, because it shows that we're making an impact. You guys are making an impact. So thank you for that. So I participated in that, and then I do agree with our chair for once today on the topic that, you know, the way that it panned out, and I'm putting out this in my own words with that meeting, and that we want to see, you know, understand what happened, because there was a huge turnout for with community that came out, and there was a huge uproar, and we want to make sure that we don't have these kind of situations in the future, and see what we can do to facilitate any kind of confrontation, not confrontations, but when people have disagreements, right? And making sure that we disseminate information in a proper way, and making sure that the community is aware of what's going on, because I did feel that there was a huge disconnect. There was a huge disconnect. And then on top of that, as someone of Native Indigenous descent, 45% Mayan blood runs through me, and I say that proudly, because some people unfortunately, because of the society where we live, maybe in the past, I know it's changing, we tend to mask our indigenous roots. And I say it proudly, 45% Mayan. I conducted a test, multiple tests, and I saw where my background comes from. And to see the indigenous tribes, the Quiche and the Tongva, come out in solidarity, speaking up and wanting a voice and table, and in a sense being ignored when they ask for a tribal government to city government meeting. I'm not so familiar or savvy with how that works and how, how if it's a request that needs to be granted, and at that point, after the meeting, that they cannot proceed until they have respectfully had that meeting. I'm not sure. So that's something that I wanted to see if we can add as part of the discussion, to see what are those protocols, because the last thing that we want to do is marginalize the Native people that, quite frankly, family descends way, way, way back. And I think it might be safe to say that their family was here before any of our families were here, and we should respect that. So if we can add that to part of the discussion that Chair Jennings Nunez mentioned, to figure out those proper protocols, and making sure that we do include all the community, including the native tribes. I think that's crucial. And I don't want to be seen as a city that's moving towards, I know it's a big word, neo-colonialism, right? Where we're just gonna move forward steadfast and disregard anybody and just trample over anybody that says anything, right? So with that said, I was a little disappointed with how the vote went down, but that's, in a sense, that's democracy, right? And that's what the council voted on. So I hear you for those people that are still here, right? And I commend you for your hard work and dedication for this honorable cause and trying to save the green space. And yeah, we look forward to, Matthew, if we can possibly add this as something that we can discuss.
Yeah, and I thought it was like, I had no idea, of course I wrote a comment, and against it, but then, after I got more familiarized with pickleball, I said, oh, that's not a bad idea, we should support, we shouldn't demonize the pickleball community, and it's, great. So I was like, okay, well, that's fine, but then a new dimension, which, after I'm going back through the video of the indigenous, the Tongva and the Quiche tribes, I was not aware of that. And of course, it is in our purview because the purpose of this commission is to facilitate positive intergroup relations and respect for all members of the San Gabriel community, and especially this regarding to our city space. So yeah, like I said, I did not know about it, but now that I do feel like we really need to listen to those voices and really take that thought seriously, because I went to Gabrielino High School, right? The high school is named after the Tongva tribe, and it's easy to just give lip service and say, oh, we named the school after the, but then we're not going to listen to what they say. So I would like to, agree with the chair and Herrera, Commissioner Herrera. Again, I did not know until very recently, and now that I do know, I do think I need to speak up.
So we'll investigate, or I'll talk to Matthew, a way to bring forth an agenda item that is one around this particular issue, but also the greater issue of community engagement and community, providing the community with enough, allowing the community to be involved by providing them with information in a timely way. And so there are a lot of issues that were brought out from this particular vote. And I don't think that our focus will be on saying that the vote was right or wrong. That will be our individual stances, but more on making sure that each community member feels like their concerns are heard and validated, and that they are provided with the information that they're seeking as the city council decides on different things, but obviously around this issue as well. So thank you. So we have 3 commissioners who'd like to bring that forth as an agenda item. So we're now moving on to staff comments. Staff members have the opportunity to address the commission and public on matters of general information and/or concern.
I'll make it brief. I know you don't want to hear from me again tonight, but just 2 things. One, wrapping up the discussion that I think you just summarized very well, Chair Jennings-Nunez. We won't be talking about undoing that particular decision if we bring that back, but love to talk about the ways that we get information out to the community, and then also the way that we interface with all of the sections of the community, but particularly with our Native American tribes. So happy to put that back on and work with you on how that we can get that on the agenda. As far as the gentleman that complained about the disabled parking issues, we can absolutely bring back a discussion or information to the commission on what our disabled parking is at the police station. His particular issue with the tickets that he received, that's a private issue, and I can assure you that that's been handled as well as it can be. But the issue with our police department, absolutely something we can report back on. And then finally, as playing off of the police department conversation, I'm happy to report the worst kept secret in San Gabriel, which is that we have hired a new police chief, and I'm proud to present to you who that's going to be. Starting September the 5th, we'll be swearing in Chief Edward Elizalde. He is currently with these, and our next door neighbor. We're stealing a great person. I don't like stealing folks from our neighbors, but we're stealing a great person from Alhambra. He's currently their deputy police chief. He gets our community. He lives within 15 minutes of work, which is one of the things I heard from the community, is hoping to get somebody that is from our area and is part of the greater community. And he gets and understands community-oriented policing. He understands being involved. And I can share with you that his father, and I found this out afterwards, so this wasn't part of the decision, but just kind of the cherry on the top, his father worked for several years with Grace Napolitano as her deputy for Veterans Affairs and some of the community outreach. So he comes from a family of public servant, and he, I think, is somebody that you'll be proud to call your police chief starting on September the 5th. So he'll be sworn in that night. It'll be his first day, and we'll have a little cake and celebration for him, and I hope you can all be there to cheer him on as he comes on to our police. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Any other staff comments? Okay, so we appreciate everybody who remained to the end. The next regular HERE Commission meeting will be held on Tuesday, September 26, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. Information regarding matters to be considered at each meeting will be available on the Friday before the HERE Commission meeting on the city's website at www.sangabrielcity.com. This regular